First of all, I want to start off with just a little bit of information about the Kansas Rural Center for those of you who may not be as familiar with us and the work that we do. We, for the past 40 years or so, have worked to promote the long-term health of land and its people through research, education, and advocacy. And we've done that we do that a few ways. We work on monitoring state and federal level policy. Some of you may be familiar with the Policy Watch e-publication that we send out during the legislative session. And we also do the really practical hands-on workshops and information and resource sharing, like webinars like this tonight for specialty crop producers. And so through that work, KRC is really committed to an economically viable, environmentally sound, and socially responsible agriculture and rural culture here in Kansas. Let's see if my slide will move forward. There we go. So this webinar is part of our risk management for specialty crop growers project, and this is the first in a webinar series and farm tour videos. As you can imagine, COVID has really kind of made us all pivot, including us. And so unfortunately, we can't do an in-person workshop or farm tour, but I've been really excited by how we've been able to pivot and adapt and bring you some digital content. So tonight is our food safety webinar. In case you're interested in some of the other webinars that we'll be hosting next week, we'll also have marketing options for specialty crop farmers during and post COVID-19. Tom Buller, extension agent at Douglas County, will be hosting record keeping for specialty crop growers next week, and then we'll be rounding out the series with a webinar on how to navigate COVID-19 federal aid for specialty crop farmers. So if you're interested in attending any of those as well, feel free to visit our website to get registered for those. I also want to point out that the Kansas Rural Center has a COVID-19 resource landing page on our website. So if you are needing some information or resources, feel free to check that out. We've tried to keep this extremely updated and have a pretty extensive list of resources that you can look to there, whether it's information about farmers markets, specialty crops, livestock, what's happening with federal aid. Hopefully you can find the answers that you need there. So with that, I'm going to jump right into the meat and bones of our webinar tonight, and we're going to kick things off with a farm tour, a video farm tour of Kuhn Family Farms. And then I'm going to turn things over to our farmer panel led by Londa Nwadike, Extension Food Safety Specialist. And then following the farmer panel, there will be some time for Q&A. And how that will work, please take note, there should be a button at the bottom of your screen that says Q&A. And please feel free to type in your questions to that box that will come up when you push that Q&A button. Feel free to type in your questions at any point during the webinar. So if you're afraid you might forget your question, go ahead and type it into the Q&A and we'll capture it and make sure that we get to it during the Q&A session. So without further ado, I'm going to switch over to our farm tour. thank you for bearing with us. This is one of the first times that we have ventured into webinar on Zoom. All right.
Hi, I'm Dan Kuhn, and I'm talking to you from our retail market and farm galactic headquarters located near Courtland in north central Kansas. Following is a short video about our farm where we grow pumpkins, watermelon, cantaloupe, asparagus, cucumbers, squash and dental floss, tomatoes, onions, peppers, blackberries, raspberries, and apples. We grow 85% of our product for wholesale, but we are blessed to have a retail market in Courtland's old train station, which we renovated 31 years ago. We're preparing our store to protect our employees and customers from coronavirus infection, but we aren't open yet, so we're not sure how it will play out.
Hi, I'm Kathy Kuhn, and I run the Depot Market, where we sell all the vegetables and fruits that Dan and Mark grow. We also carry other food products like Kansas cheese, local bacon, snack items, jams, pickles, and salsas made in Wichita. We'd like to try new things and now have homemade ice cream made right here at the Depot Market.
Hi, I'm Mark Stadler. I'm the farm manager and also in charge of the food safety program here at the Depot. Some of our wholesale customers require Global GAP certification, and most all of the other crops that we grow fall under FSMA regulations. So over the past 5 years, we've developed and modified our food safety plan for both GAP and FSMA. K-State Research and Extension has been a big help to us. Offering a lot of guidance. They have a lot of templates on their website. We can send policies and procedures to them, and they're really helpful in letting us know where we're compliant, where we could be better towards food safety. For example, last year we participated in one of their on-farm readiness reviews, and that really helped us know what policies could use some more work and what policies were in line. The big thing with food safety is making sure we're being safe and growing and producing, but also that the policies we set are attainable from a management standpoint. And again, K-State has been really helpful in that.
This is our watermelon field. As you can see, it's planted on black plastic. We've got rye strips in between the rows to protect the plants from wind and from hail. We planted these about May 4th. Hopefully we'll be harvesting them about the last week of July, first week of September. It's a perfect day for them. They're sprawling out and soon we'll be touching in the row. It's like 89 degrees right now, and if you could listen very carefully, you could hear the watermelon singing. So here we are on our farm in the asparagus field, and we quit harvesting this a week ago. We started April 21st, and now we're letting it go to fern. As you can see, we mowed this off last week, and we sprayed it with herbicides, and we're just going to let it go to fern and make groceries for next year's harvest. Pumpkins are the most important crop on our farm, pumpkins and squash. And here we are out in the pumpkin field. Not a lot to see, but these plants right here are just emerged. They were planted 10 days ago. And as you can see, we've got ryegrass. We grow these no-till. Planted this field to rye, and last fall we killed the rye. We planted the pumpkins, sprayed our pre-emergence, and then we rolled the rye down. We grow pumpkins of every kind there is, just about. We grow 4 or 5 different kinds of miniature pumpkins, and we grow whites, blues, and every kind of decorator pumpkins, as well as the regular jack-o'-lanterns, and up to and including the giant pumpkins. You get 100, 150 pounds.
An acre of high tunnels, half of which, a little over half of which we have tomatoes in this year. And all of these tomatoes were planted the last few days of March. And here we are. We have some fruit forming and some more blossoms on top. We're hoping the next few weeks to start getting some color on these. Everything is black plastic and on drip tape. And so we do some fertilizing and things like that through the drip tape on all these high tunnels.
So here we are in another one of our high tunnels. These are cucumbers that are trained to this wire or this plastic mesh. And as you can see, we're in harvest right now. Here's a cucumber. Here's another one. There's another one. And lots of cucumbers in here. Next week we're going to be swimming in them. When you grow them on these trellises, they really like this. We started harvesting about a week ago, and we'll harvest all the way through August with these things, because when they're on these trellises, we're not walking on them, and the fruit's real nice. It's nice and straight and doesn't have any yellow belly on it, and it works. It's a really nice crop for us in the hoop house. So here we are in another one of our hoop houses, and what you see here is some red raspberries that we grow. They're everbearing. They're a real gee whiz crop. As you can see, they're making little berries right now, and probably around the 1st of July we'll start to have some fruit, and these things will bear fruit all the way up until frost, and they have been a super good crop for us. We mow them off to the ground every year, and we have a few problems with spider mites and with SWD. Other than that, they're pretty dependable, and they really work good for us.
Here we're in a apple planting. These 2 rows we put in last spring, and we got 2 rows over here we put in this spring. This is a high density orchard, so our tree population is about 1,200 trees per acre. These trees here to my left are at full height. So these are a fully dwarfing rootstock. They're only going to get about 8 to 12 feet tall. We have a handful of different varieties in here: Fuji's and Galas, Evercrisp, Ludicrisp, and as you can see, we train the branches down to sort of calm the tree and try to get more fruit production and less branch production. So we had a cold spell this spring, so it doesn't look like we're going to have very much fruit, but hopefully next spring we'll be able to crop at least this row here. Here we have about an acre of blackberries. We have a few different varieties. It's mostly Natchez, which is the row right here. We have some Ouachita, and we have about 1.5 rows of Triple Crown down there, so we can sort of stagger out our harvest throughout the month of July and into August. And these blackberries are on a rotating cross-arm trellis, and so there's 3 different stages we can position the trellis that have different advantages for us. The main one being able to lay the trellis down in the winter and put row cover over it to protect them from winter injury, as well as we can have it in a horizontal position and let all the blooms set on one side. And then just yesterday we raised all these up to the position they're in now, and you can see all the fruit that forms on one side of the trellis. So that makes it really nice for harvest. We mainly market this through U-Pick, and so all the berries are right here. It looks really nice and pretty when all these start turning black and ripe, and people can just come down the row and pick buckets in just seconds.
Hey, thank you very much, Dan, Kathy, and Mark, for putting that video together for us, especially on kind of the quick notice that we gave you. I really appreciate it. Dan, I think we had one question during the video for you, and that question was if they're organic. Let's see, Joanna, do you have more specifics on this question?
Yes, somebody wanted to know if any of the crops are grown organically.
No,
Okay.
no. Now we we do use some organic techniques. We use beneficial insects, Persimolis spider mites in our tomato houses and raspberries, and we use a lot of cover crops. We put I'd say we put cover crops on everything we grow, and we use compost in that we make ourselves in our high tunnels. But no, we're not certified organic or.
All right, thank you.
All right. I don't think we have any other questions right now, but since Dan will be on the panel, we will have more time at the end for Q&A if you think of other questions that you'd like to ask Dan about his farm tour. So with that, I'd like to turn things over to Londa.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes,
No.
we can.
Okay, perfect, great. Yeah, thanks very much, Natalie, for inviting me, and thank you so much to Dan and Kathy and Mark. As Natalie said, for doing the tour. I thought that was great. I haven't had the privilege of going up to Dan and Kathy's and Mark's farm yet, so it was nice for me to be able to see it on video at least, since I haven't been able to make it in person yet. And thanks to all of you that could join tonight. I know that it's kind of a hot night, so it might be a nice night to be inside. And I see they're recording it, so hopefully that'll be available too if others couldn't make it and want to watch it later. So yeah, my name is Londa Nwadike, and I work for both Kansas State University and University of Missouri Extension. So I'm housed in the Kansas City area. And I want to, first, before I go into talking with the farmers, just give a shout out to Cal Jamerson. He's on the call as well. He's our Produce Safety Extension Associate. And he's the one that really helps Dan Kuhn's farm with their food safety issues. And I was happy that they mentioned the on-farm readiness reviews, OFRRs, and I know Susan's done one of those as well, and one of our other panelists. And we're able to start doing those after July 4. So K-State Extension's current date for not doing anything in person is July 4. So after July 4, we can, if you want to schedule one of those on-farm readiness reviews, or if you'd like Cal to come out to your farm and help look at some of your practices and see if you could make improvements, as long as you're in Kansas, and that we can help you with that. So so just contact us if you're interested in having one of those done. And an OFR is the Department of Ag will come, as well as K-State Research and Extension, and that way you'll hear directly from the regulators what they would be looking for, and it's an opportunity for them to learn more about your production system and how you're farming and so on as well. So so thanks for those advertisements. So tonight we have, so like I said, we have a great panel. We're really excited. These three farmers that have agreed to be on the panel tonight, Susan Rommelfanger, sorry, the farm is Rommey Farms. Susan Rommelfanger is from Cassoday, Kansas, and I'll let her speak here in a minute. Then we also have Jessi Assmussen, and she's from the Lawrence area. And then of course Dan Kuhn from Courtland area. And you know, each of these farms do a great job with their food safety practices, and they each have a little bit differences in their operations. So we tried to choose farms that would have, and I can't remember if any of you are certified organic, but I believe Jessi had used, and I think Susan too used quite a few organic practices in relation to the earlier question. So we have farms that kind of have different interactions with the public, and different you know, just different sizes and kind of scales, and different, you know, whatever the right word is, but just different modes of operation. So we tried to pick farms that would have kind of some differences, so you can learn from a variety of farmers. and what they're doing related to food safety, specifically related to COVID. And I'll just say really quickly, for any of you who have heard me speak about related since COVID started, just want to emphasize that COVID is not transmitted through food. We do not have any evidence that there's any transmission of COVID through food or food packaging, but it definitely intersects with produce safety because, you know, you're dealing with safety of the people that are working on your farm and safety of your customers that are coming to your farm or that you're interacting with. So COVID isn't specifically a food safety issue, but it is definitely, it's not a foodborne illness, but it is definitely something that definitely intersects really closely with food safety. So that's why it is, and all the practice, well, most of the practices that are important for controlling COVID are also good practices anyway. So, you know, hand washing and sanitation of surfaces, those are all good practices anyway. So, and thankfully they help control COVID and they also help control foodborne illness. So, so it's kind of a win-win. Face mask is not something that's, anyway, well, I'm talking about that tonight, but anyway, I'll stop talking and I'll let the farmers start talking here. So I have a number of questions that we've kind of prepared, asked the farmers to be ready to speak on. So I'm going to let each of the farmers respond, and then we have some other questions that we'll bring up later. And you can still be bringing up questions in the chat box, and if you have Q&A, feel free to type those in while we're talking here. So I think I'll have Susan go first, and then followed by Jessi and Dan. So the first question that we'd like you to talk about is just very briefly, tell us a little bit about your current food safety practices. So, and Dan, we saw some of those in his video, but just a brief kind of, 20,000-foot overview, I guess, of some of your food safety practices. And we're gonna ask next about your practices after COVID, but so first we wanna know just generally, what are some of the kind of good food safety practices that you're using on your farm? So Susan?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. Our farm is a small farm. We've been in operation since 2016, and we do specialty crops. We have 92 different items that we grow and cut flowers. We have a pasture-raised chicken and duck flock, and then we're apiarists as well. So we have hives. We have a 30-member CSA, and we sell at farmers markets and local restaurants. So our food safety program was developed, and a lot of sweat and everything went into it with Cal Jamerson. And all of our employees are required to, of course, wash their hands often, wash during shifts after they return to the restroom. And we wash our greens, so we have a rinse and wash, and then again. So when COVID hit, my husband works full-time off the farm, and he became our essential shopper. And so I was on the farm and only left for emergencies. And so he was the one that went out and did all of our shopping. And so we were very safe in that we watched that. When we had people pick up at our farm, we always would wear our masks and gloves, and they would do curbside. So that was another thing that we implemented as well. When COVID hit, we had some really great community young people that got on board with us and helped us get our online store running. And so we now have an online store that we sell through as well. So there was a lot of benefits as far as our farm moving forward in social media and web presence as well.
Great. Whoa, sorry. My 3 kids are upstairs and I just heard it sounds like a glass cracking. That's wonderful. Anyway, so on that note, Jessi, do you want to talk about your farm a little and just again, the kind of 30,000-foot overview of what you're doing related to food safety?
Yeah. So we are on the eastern edge of Lawrence, Mellowfields Farm. We are certified organic, and we have been for several years. In years past, we have done about 50% of our sales at farmers market, both in Lawrence and Kansas City, and then 25% in wholesale and 25% in CSA. Obviously, this year, can you all hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, how much did you hear anything I said? Hello?
Maybe somebody else
Yes.
can help answer.
Yeah, you've been great. It's been
Okay.
great. Yeah.
Okay, it looked like I got muted for a second.
Okay, no, you're doing fine.
Okay,
Yeah.
where was I? Yeah, so obviously when, we had the shutdown and we realized that COVID was going to be an issue for most of the growing season, we got together with the other farmers that we do a cooperative CSA with, and we decided to double our CSA shares. We had so much interest at that point, and we were able to sell out of our CSA shares in about a week. And so we went from about 100 CSA shares to almost 200. And that's Common Harvest CSA is the CSA that we're a part of. And so it's a multi-farm CSA, and that felt really good to us to be able to shift and know that we had that marketing avenue secure. We made some changes to the CSA. It used to be a walk-through market style CSA, and we decided to do a drive-through. So all the shares are pre-bagged, and folks drive through, they hold up a sign with their name, or they tell us their name through the window, and we put their bag in their trunk or their back seat for them. And that has worked really well, surprisingly well. We have not returned to market, and we are planning to reassess at the beginning of July, but for the time being, our CSA is keeping us afloat, as well as our web store. We moved a lot of our sales online, and we began a delivery service. So people place their orders. We have a 4-day window where people can place their orders, and then on Fridays we deliver to households in Lawrence within the city limits. If you spend over $20, there's not a delivery fee. People can also pick up from our farm on Friday afternoons, and that's a no contact pickup. And we just have everybody's names on their bags, and we roll the carts out to the front of our garage under an overhang, and people just drive up and pick up their bag. We've also sold a lot through wholesale. Obviously, restaurants have dropped off quite a bit, although not entirely. And so our grocery store customers have been really huge as well. So that's kind of the changes we did for our marketing. As far as our safety plan we've had in place for about 6 years, we updated it to sanitizing all surfaces every day and wearing masks while packaging, as well as gloves while packaging produce.
Great. Thank you, Jessi.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of changes. Dan, do you want to just, I know you've seen the video, but if you want to speak just a little bit more about kind of your, again, kind of big picture food safety practices that you have in place, just to kind of reinforce what we saw in the video.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, food safety. As Mark said in the video, we've been GAP certified for 5 or 6 years. We have wholesale customers who require it, and we're FSMA compliant. And I can't say enough good things about Cal Jamerson, who has been an invaluable resource. He is a hardworking guy, knows what he's doing, and we like him. Besides, he's a great guy. So he's been a big help, and I would encourage you all, except this may mean more work for him, by encouraging you all to talk to Cal whenever you have any food safety issues. So this year, we have kind of a big switch because we're doing global gap for watermelon and for asparagus, which takes us to a whole nother level of food safety requirements. And so we'll see how that goes. As far as COVID goes, so far we've wholesaled asparagus, and we're wholesaling cucumbers, zucchini, and yellow squash right now. And I have to say that COVID hasn't really changed that very much, except that we pack asparagus around a machine that cuts and washes and sizes asparagus. And one of our concerns has been the safety of our employees, which is the first thing. And so we required everybody to wear a mask when we're packing asparagus. And once we're into watermelon harvest, which will be our next big thing, and well, tomatoes too, we'll be wearing masks in the packing shed. As far as our retail store goes, it's going to open tomorrow. So we're going to require everybody to wear masks and wipe down surfaces. Fortunately, we live in Republic County, Kansas, and north central Kansas. And we've only had 4 cases in our county and haven't had a new one since I think April 9th or so. So there hasn't been as much concern here as other places in Kansas. Although our retail market, which you guys saw in the picture, is located on US 36. And so we have traffic from Chicago to Denver that travel US 36. So we have potentially more cause for concern for virus infection because of interstate travelers. So I don't know what else to say about it. Glad to answer any questions, of course.
Great. Well, thanks, Dan. I think let's go around to probably the next round of questions here. Susan, do you want to talk a little bit about what's been the most surprising change to you in the midst of the pandemic, both in kind of produce safety terms as well as just in general? What's been the most surprising to you?
Engaging, and they're becoming fully aware and willing to have a conversation about their local food system and why it's important. You know, we see more young people understanding what local means, local grown. And so that was probably the most surprising change that we saw with our farm in our area.
Great. Thank you, Susan. I'm going to go to Jessi, and then I think the next question that's in the chat, or the question answer, I think that's for Dan. So Susan, do you have any U-pick at your farm? I can't remember. I don't remember if you said you did. Okay.
No.
Okay. So Jessi, do you want to answer the question about what's been the most surprising? And then if you do U-pick, you can mention that too.
We don't do U-pick. And I would say the most surprising part, I would, agree with Susan, is the amount of interest that we had early on for buying shares in the CSA, but also the delivery service. We have been offering delivery through our CSA for about 3 years, and we'd get 4 or 5 people that would sign up for the delivery service, and it really wasn't a popular service. But this year, everybody wants delivery, and we're happy to do deliveries. It makes it a lot easier for us than trying to manage the on-farm pickups. And it allows us to keep our employees safe by not going to farmers market, keeps us safe by not going to, out into the public, especially early on when we were trying to keep our sales on par. So that was really surprising, the amount of people that really wanted the delivery service. And we're really appreciative of it. And I'll be really interested to see going forward if the interest in delivery continues post-COVID.
Yeah, I think that's a big question that's on everybody's mind is really how long this will continue. If it will be just for a few months, or if it will continue the rest of the season or next season, or what will happen. So we'll all be interested in that for sure. Dan, do you want to talk first about what's been the most surprising change for you post-COVID? And then we also have a question in the box about your U-picking operations. So I'll let you start with whichever question you want to start with.
Okay, well, when COVID first became a big deal, we were really worried because, as everybody was, for a lot of reasons, for safety issues, first of all. But, you know, we didn't know how this was going to affect, well, pick your own is one thing, our retail business, and our biggest crop is pumpkins. So a question we ask ourselves in March and April when we're planning is, are people going to buy pumpkins in the fall? Because you don't have to have pumpkins. They're not a necessity. We were pretty sure that the food items we grow would be fine. But since that time, one never knows. But I think that people are going to buy pumpkins. They're going to go out to pumpkin patches. And probably 60–70% of our pumpkin and squash businesses to grocery stores. And I think they're going to sell pumpkins the same as they have. As for the other items, what we're selling now, and tomatoes and melons, which are coming up, everybody I know that's in this business is doing really well. Now, I'm not talking about farmers markets because we don't go to farmers markets and we don't sell to very many people that do. But anybody I know that's in the roadside business and also in the pick your own business is really doing well. The pick your own thing, it seems, is a great thing for kids. There aren't ball games this summer. There's a lot of stuff that's closed, and it's something you can do with kids to get them out of the house, make them tired. So that really seems to be going well. I think this year there's a lot of opportunities. I think it's going to be a great year. I'm optimistic about it, as long as nobody gets sick, and that's what my concern is, for the safety of our employees and for people that work in our store and also on our packing line.
Thanks, Dan. Dan, do you want to talk about like specifically what changes you've made in your U-pick? And I don't know, have you had any U-pickers come out yet? And if they haven't come out yet, are you doing anything specifically with your U-pickers? Are you requiring them to do this or that? Or how are you handling, you know, picking containers and that sort of thing this year? Any changes that you've made?
Well, we won't start having any U-pick at all until probably the 1st of July when we do blackberries. And to be honest, we haven't talked a lot about that. We've been concerned about getting stuff planted, getting our store open. And basically what I'm going to do is talk to our buddies who are in the U-pick business with strawberries that have already gone through this and who know what works and what doesn't work. And yeah, I'm not really sure, to be honest, what we're going to do. So.
Oh, that's a very honest answer.
And I've got 2 weeks to figure it out.
And I know you'll figure it out. No, that's great. I was going to say, MU Extension did have a webinar. I don't remember how long ago. Time is kind of hard to keep track of these days, but I think it was maybe, I don't know, a few weeks ago. And they brought in some farmers from like North Carolina and Florida, some U-pick growers that, you know, have already experienced their season. They talked about the changes that they've made. So I can try to find that link and put that in the chat box maybe. to share that if that's of interest, if people want to kind of get some other tips on U-pick changes and so on. And we have some fact sheets too on suggestions for U-pick changes related to COVID. I can try to find that too. And yeah, I know I took my kids to a local strawberry U-pick place here as well, and yeah, they did a great job of handling. You know, they had you had to register for what time you wanted to come. You had to come during a set time. You couldn't just come anytime, and you know, they had a lot of crowd control and that sort of thing. So yeah, so it's great to kind of learn from others. I agree. Let me see. The next question I wanted to ask is, what would you say has been the most challenging change amid the pandemic? And one other thing I wanted to make sure I mentioned too, I know there was a question earlier about organic practices. So so maybe Susan and Jess, if you want to talk kind of about your like organic practices that you use and how that fits into food safety. Because you know they're related, but they're a little bit different. So if you could talk about those two things. So the most challenging things, and then also if you want to talk a little bit about your organic practices, that'd be great.
Okay. Well, I think the most challenging part that we've encountered, number one, was getting products like packaging into the farm. When everything shut down, it just delayed the shipping. And so that was a big concern. The other part was navigating what to do with our product when our farmers markets were shut down. We were able to go online and utilize social media more in order to get our products out there. But that was a definite challenge for us with just our small staff. So we are not certified organic, but we do a lot of pruning. We do cover crop. We just follow the guidelines as much as possible, but we aren't certified at this point. We do composting. We do a lot of mulching, no-till. We grow under plastic as well. So all of our crops are irrigated, drip irrigated under plastic, and we have 2 high tunnels.
Great, thank you, Susan. Jessi, do you want to talk again both about what's been the most challenging changes related to the pandemic, and then also if you want to talk a little bit about your organic practices and kind of how that interacts with your food safety practices, that'd be great.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, as far as challenging, I feel like at the beginning, for the first couple of weeks of COVID, it was a huge challenge on all aspects. And I think that was right when our staff was coming back for the season. And so we had, these questions that they were asking us about what does their job look like, and their safety, and what is the season going to look like, job security. And then on the other hand, we were trying to pivot our marketing and sales, and also follow that through. What are all these changes going to mean? We need more packaging, like Susan said, and seeds. Places were running out of seeds, so we had to get our seed orders in quickly. So there was a whole lot of capital that we needed right away to buy all these products that were, we needed for the season to make these changes to our sales. We hit the wholesale really hard, and we were having a hard time finding clamshells that we'd been using. We use a certified compostable clamshell, and my husband Kevin called and they said, this is how many we have in stock, and they're just flying off the shelf. And so we had to make sure that we were looking ahead weeks for our products. And seeds also, we get a lot of our seeds from Johnny's Select Seeds, And for a while there, everything was just out of stock. And, you know, lots of home gardeners and people that were preparing for a long-term shutdown were ordering seeds for the first time, and they were experiencing this huge backlog, and they didn't have enough staff. And so we weren't able to get, you know, some of our spring seeds. In fact, yesterday we just got an order of spinach that we had placed in February, at the end of February, and it finally got here yesterday. So I feel like those were challenges that, you know, we were just having to stay up, you know, late and do lots of planning and figuring out. As far as the staffing went, the staffing challenges and the concerns that our employees were having, this was a completely new territory for us. And after we were able to fill our CSA and get our web store up, and we saw how, you know, how many sales we were getting with our web store, that anxiety kind of went down, and we said, yes, you have a job, it's secure, but let's talk about how to keep everyone safe. And one of the things that we came up with was, you know, we said, we want to make sure that if you don't feel well, you're not tempted to come to work because you need a paycheck. And that will keep everyone safe. And so we said, you know, let us know right away. And we went ahead and offered 2-week sick pay for anybody who was sick, so that we made sure that if somebody actually contracted COVID, that they wouldn't spread it to the rest of the crew. And I think that a lot of the staff anxiety went down when they knew that, you know, they would be covered if they got sick. And, you know, when the sales continued to stay at what they were last year, that kind of relieved some of those concerns. But for, you know, a few weeks there, it seemed like every day we were having to think of new things, and there was new challenges, and we were having to problem solve. So yeah, it was all a challenge for a little while.
Yeah, it's such a complicated time to be a farmer. I know I grew up on we have beef in a kind of a more conventional farm, and yeah, there's obviously 1,000 things that you have to deal with, you know, and food safety is one. And
Yeah.
then you have all the other things that you have to deal with as well. Like you said, just keeping your workers, you know, making sure that they don't quit their job, and making sure that you have, you know, labor available. I mean, there's so many things you have to think about. So.
Yes. And the second part of your question, Londa, about our organic practices, I would say that our organic practices have stayed the same. And the one thing that has changed is our certifier isn't able to come when he said he was. So that's been pushed back, you know, 6 weeks or so. But, you know, we're still sourcing all organic seed. Our potting mix is certified organic. All of our amendments that we use granulated seed meal fertilizers, and you know, all of that is Omni approved. We are rotating, you know, our crops out and applying compost, and you know, cover cropping just like we were before. And so as far as our organic practices, those have pretty much stayed the same. We've just been delayed in our actual certification.
And Jessi, you might have mentioned this, but did they extend like your organic certification, even though your certifier couldn't come out? Like, are you still, like, did USDA allow you to not, you know, that it was okay that your certifier couldn't come out, but you're still considered organic certified?
Yeah, they, we're through ODAF, the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, Food and Forestry is our certifier, and they do a delay in the actual certificate. So, you know, they come out and they do the inspection, and then the certificate comes out a couple months after that. So there won't be a lapse in our certification. It's just the date that we had previously scheduled had to be pushed back. So there wasn't any lapse.
Okay, good. Because I know with GAP certification, for example, the GAP certifiers, they USDA said, okay, you know, anybody that's GAP's certification was supposed to expire on March 25, you know, we'll let you have an extra, I don't remember, 90 days or whatever, because they knew that the certifiers couldn't come out, you know, during that time. So they said, okay, we'll just extend your certification. So, so anyway, I was curious if organic certification did the same thing. But, okay. Dan, do you want to talk a little bit about what's been the most challenging change for you related to COVID? And in terms of produce safety and COVID, what's been the most challenging thing for you?
Well, I think our big challenges are going to be up ahead for seeing how our food safety program works in our retail store and also with UPIC. I'd have to say that for the wholesale business that we've done so far, you know, we're GAP certified, food safety is what we do. We've been doing it for a long time. And so really there's not a lot outside of protecting our workers when they're working close together. There isn't really a whole lot different so far.
Great. Yeah. No, and that's very true. You know, if you're doing things right in terms of produce safety anyway, there isn't that much extra in terms of produce safety that you need to think about related to COVID. It's just your worker safety. So that's exactly right. Marketing and all those other things are something else different. I mean, that's a whole another thing you have to deal with, but yeah, very, very good. Okay, so we're going to go back. Next question, we're going to go back to Susan here. And you kind of covered this already, but if you want to each just kind of talk a little bit about what do you think has been the most positive change that's happened amid the pandemic? You've kind of talked about when you talked about surprising changes, I guess, but maybe, you know, we kind of want to really think about the positives, obviously, that are happening as well. So Susan, if you want to speak kind of about things that have been positive that you'd like to share with everyone.
Sure. I think as far as our customers, our consumers, they are much more willing right now to give back to the community and get involved. They give their time and talents to make their local food production viable. They understand it now. Like I was speaking about the young people that came alongside of us, helped us develop our web presence further with our online store. Just the amount of support that people are giving local farmers, in that they understand if things shut down, how are they going to eat and how are they going to eat healthy? And so we've just found a lot of positive outcomes. I think they have just consumers have taken a different look at how they eat and where they get their food. And so that's been really great. We've seen a lot of our customers get on board and start their own container gardens or a backyard garden. Where that goes from, you know, now everything opening back up, we're kind of excited to see. But people that really didn't even think that they could grow or had any knowledge of growing, we did a lot of educating with, and so it was just very very good for us in that we could teach how to grow, how to plant, and the different types and varieties of things out there. So that was really exciting for us.
Great. One comment I want to make really quick. I was thinking about it when I was watching Dan's video of his the watermelon plants. So I grew up on a farm, but my kids are first generation removed from the farm, and already, man, I feel like I try to keep telling them, like, so we planted some watermelon plants at our house, and you know, my 6-year-old was so sure that like the next day there'd be watermelon out there, and I had to keep telling him, like, we have to wait a few weeks, and we're going out and watering it. Now there's finally flowers, but yeah, I hopefully we'll hear them singing soon, Dan, just like you said, your watermelon are singing. But yeah, I think that's so important for kids to learn that, like, you plant a seed, or you plant even the little starter plant, and it's not tomorrow that the food comes. Like there is a little bit of a time lag there, and that's why we don't waste our food, because farmers work really hard to produce it. It's not just like a instant thing. We have to, eat and use our food wisely. So anyway, I appreciated the watermelon singing comments. Jessi, do you want to talk about what you feel like has been kind of the most positive change that you've seen?
I really, personally, I like having a weekend. It used to be that my husband would go to Kansas City for a farmer's market early on Saturday morning, and I would head to the Lawrence farmer's market. And then, we'd both be back at the farm in the afternoon. But, it was a really exhausting day. And so then we would just have Sunday to recuperate and back to work on Monday. And so having a 2-day weekend for us has been really huge. We've worked really hard to, push our product out there and keep everyone employed on our staff, and keep our revenue on par with what it was last year. And so our weeks are extremely busy, and we have, twice as many CSA pickups. But to have that weekend has been a really surprising, huge thing for us. And the burnout that we're usually feeling at this time of the year, I feel like isn't quite there, and we're really grateful for that. And although it's an unfortunate circumstance, and we would love to be at market and seeing our customers, having that weekend it's just really nice. I would also say, because we're not going to market, we're not bringing any product home. And so there's no wasted product. Everything that we harvest is for an order. And so we are harvesting exactly how much we need each week. And there isn't any excess product coming back and going back into the cooler. And that means that we aren't wasting our labor hours as well. So being really efficient with our labor and tightening that up has been a positive. So I would say that those two things are pretty positive right now.
That's a great point. We always, and I'm not an expert in this area, but we always do talk to farmers about, you have to make sure that you're including your labor in when you're calculating things too. Like your labor is worth a lot. Like you can't just discount that, and you have to take care of yourself mentally as well. That's really important too. So I think those are great points to take care of yourself too. So Dan, do you want to talk about what you feel like has been the most positive change with your operation related to the pandemic?
I'd have to say pricing and demand. There's just so much demand for local stuff. Watermelon's one of our big crops. And when the pandemic started, there were growers in the Southeast United States who cut back because they didn't know what was going to happen. And so I'm just using watermelon for an example. And so consequently, right now, the watermelon are scarce, or not, they're short. Price is high. Sweet corn's the same way. We bought some sweet corn today that's Georgia to have in our store to begin with, since there's no local yet. And it was $5.50 in Omaha today. That's crazy, crazy price. And people are getting like, $9 a dozen, even up to 10, 11 bucks a dozen for corn. And, how that's going to play out the rest of the year, I don't know. But, and people, as has already been said, something changed in people's buying habits, and they just want to buy locally more now than they did a year ago.
Yeah, no, I think that is great to hear that reinforced from all of you that it has been a lot of positives have happened, which I think is great. So yeah, you know, sometimes we don't want it to be because of a pandemic that has happened, but it is a very positive benefit that that's happened. The last question that we have written down, and please feel free, participants, attendees, to make sure if you do have questions to write them in the chat box or the Q&A box, to let us know if you do have any questions for the panelists. But the last kind of prepared question that we had for the panelists was, and again, we've kind of already been talking about this, but how do you think the pandemic will affect the future of produce safety and kind of, you know, safety related things, as well as marketing in Kansas? So kind of maybe think about both of those parts. We've kind of talked about marketing quite a bit, but so, you know, kind of long term, how do you think this might affect these things long term? Susan, do you want to start?
Sure. Well, while the current movement is to eat local, many consumers will likely go back to buying at big box stores for the convenience, which we're thinking is going to happen. It's important that we as local farmers share the importance of a local food system while consumers are listening and engaged. And talking about produce safety and where their food is grown and how it's grown, those are all things that we're focusing on when we are directly talking to our customers. So, you know, being engaged definitely in the local food system is something that we're hoping people still continue.
Great. Yeah. Thank you, Susan. I'll put in the chat box here in a minute too, but I'll just say that K-State Research and Extension, we recently, it was kind of serendipitous actually that we started a local foods like interdisciplinary team or transdisciplinary team. It started right about the time that COVID started. It was not intended to be that way, but that's what happened. And we've been talking about some of those issues that you've brought up, and hopefully to try to continue that momentum of buying local, and that it's not just you know, a short-term thing. Jessi, do you want to talk a little bit about that question as well? You know, how do you think it'll affect the future of produce safety and marketing in Kansas?
Yeah, I think that because more consumers are interested in local and they're trying local and they're feeling secure buying local produce, and farmers are feeling secure in their practices, it just creates this trust between the consumer and the producer that I think was there with some customers and producers, but I think that there's a shift now with consumers, and that they're trusting us maybe more than they're trusting another store, because they're now thinking about how many touches are on their produce. And the extension of that is, how far is your produce going? And so it's kind of brought this into focus that, you know, they're getting it from the person who actually grew it. There was maybe one or two people that touched their food, and it's becoming really important for them. And so I feel like this trust that is being built between a consumer and a producer is very valuable, and I don't think that that's going to go away. And so I feel like that's what drives a lot of purchases, is where people feel like they're going to get quality, safe produce. And so hopefully that will continue to increase our sales.
Great. Yeah. Thank you. That is great to hear. Dan, do you want to address that question as well? How do you think the pandemic will affect the future of produce safety and marketing in Kansas?
I think local marketing for Kansas producers, there's more and more demand for local stuff, for local produce in Kansas. It's been increasing for a number of years. It's going to continue. The pandemic accelerated it. One thing that's happened in the last couple of years that's significant is that a lot of the big grocery chains, some of whom we've sold to, have gotten out of the local produce deal. it's just too much hassle. They've gone to centralized buying in, say, one place in the United States. And because of that, there's more and more opportunities for local producers to sell their stuff. As far as food safety goes, boy, I don't know. You know, the pick your own thing, I can't speak with any experience. As far as the other products that we sell, I don't think anything much has changed. It's all about worker safety is what we're concerned about. One addendum. Am I okay to continue, Natalie?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, one thing, we employ H-2A visa workers. And one thing that was a concern of ours at the very beginning I didn't mention was our guys can be able to cross the border or not. And so far that has not been an issue. And I don't think it's going to be an issue. I know farmers who employ people from South Africa, it's been terrible because they're just now getting some of their workers and from other countries, the Ukraine. But for us, and that could be a nightmare if the border got closed and we couldn't get our H-2A workers. So enough said.
Thanks, Dan. I think we may have lost Londa. It looks like her internet might be down. You know, those things happen when you rely on digital formats. So we just carry on. One question that I would like to ask, and any of you can answer this before we wrap up tonight. And if anybody out there has questions, feel free to get those in the chat box as we look to wrap up here. What kind of support do you think is needed in Kansas to help do what you do, whether that's policy or infrastructure?
I'll start. I think that we have a great resource in the Kansas Specialty Crop Growers Association. So it's continuing to grow, and I'm actually on the board of directors, and the vast knowledge of farmers that are willing to share with other farmers is incredible. We talk a lot about things that can help us together, and like bulk buying and those types of resources. So that's been a huge part of what's helped us on our farm, and will continue to help us as well as they grow and get bigger. So I see that as a real positive going forward.
I think continuing to give us up-to-date information on COVID and the virus and how it affects food. It was really reassuring to know that there wasn't evidence that it was being spread by food containers or food. And so I think that kind of information is really helpful. And I checked K-State's website several times as new COVID information was being released. And so continuing to be on top of that is helpful. I also think making, panels like this free are important to give access to everybody for this information. And so continuing to give the free information is really helpful.
Great, thanks, Jessi. Dan, do you have any thoughts about that one?
Well, can you repeat your question?
Yeah, no problem. I asked if there was anything you think that Kansas needs to help support what you do, whether that's through policy or infrastructure or anything else, information and resources.
I think you guys, I think K-State's doing a great job of helping out. Several things that are big concerns. One of them is crop insurance, which is a federal thing. Whether or not the state can help with that, I'm not sure. But crop insurance is a necessity for, especially for, well, for all of us, small and large producers. And that's been a very difficult thing for a lot of small growers to navigate, if not impossible. And I don't know if the state of Kansas, you know, if K-State can do anything to help with that or not, I don't know. Another thing that is a huge concern for a lot of small growers is herbicide drift. Out here on the Great Plains, where there's a lot of dicamba sprayed, and anybody, you know, I know a lot of smaller producers that have a terrible time with dicamba drift. We've had a little bit of trouble, but that prevents a lot of people from making a living. So those two things, I would say, if Extension could help with that, be great.
Thanks, Dan. That's really useful information. I see Londa is, I think you are back on, Londa. Did you have any thoughts to wrap up with?
No, and my video went off, so I apologize. I missed part of what people were saying, but I really want to appreciate Kansas Rural Center for organizing this and for inviting us to be a part of it. And I do see Don Teskey had a question. Maybe you answer. I don't know if you answered that or not. Liability insurance.
Oh, not yet. So yes, let's tackle that question. So yes, so we have the question: do you have problems with affordable liability insurance?
I'll go. We switched last year to bundling our farm and our home and our liability all together. And I will say that saved us quite a bit of money. We were overpaying, I believe, before that. And that was because we had just added policies on as we grew. And so we had kind of piecemealed it together. But if you are able to bundle your farm policy with liability in your home all together, you might be able to save some money.
You going to say anything, Susan?
Well, I just want to say that we don't bundle ours currently. We have a pretty big policy, but we actually last year switched so that we could find a better rate. So while it's pretty high, it's something that we value, and yeah, you just have to have it, and we want to have it so that we're, making sure that we're doing everything we need to do. So we don't buy it locally. We've been talking to local agents, but we buy it nationally.
I guess it's my turn. Our experience is similar to Jessi's, where, probably 10 years ago or so, we bundled everything together. We've got one policy, or one agent at least, that takes care of liability, work comp, property insurance, product liability, all in one unit, or one package, one bundle, however you want to say it.
Very good. So we are nearing the end of our time. And I want to give folks just a few more minutes if they think of any questions for you. but before we go, I'm wondering if each of you could tell folks how they can get in touch with you if maybe they have questions or want to come visit you or follow up in any way. Susan?
Okay, we have a website, so we're at Rommeyfarms.com. Our phone number is on our website, so they can give us a call. We are located 4 miles west of Cassoday, and it's kind of a unique place. We have an open house on June 30th that we're inviting everyone into. So it'll be our first opportunity for people to come on the farm in a bigger crowd than what we've usually seen. We'll be social distancing, doing some fun things that night. We have a Facebook page, Rommey Farms LLC, and we're on Instagram at Rommey Farms 16 as well. So people can find us out there and shout out to us, and we try to be very responsive and engaged and get back with people right away.
Great, thank you. Jessi?
Yeah, I'm going to share our sign out front. I was going to show you all this, and I forgot earlier. I have a picture of our sign that we have along our road. We live on a paved road right outside of Florence, and it's pretty heavily trafficked. And one thing we did recently was get a sign that has a QR code on it. And I'm not sure if you all are familiar with this, but it's brand new to me. But I guess a lot of people are using QR codes, and we got it printed on our sign. So if people get out their phone, instead of trying to tell people to go to a website, you can click the QR code, and most smartphones' camera will recognize it and take you right to the website. And so I'm going to try and share this picture with you all. This is our sign next to the road, and that black and white thing is a QR code. And of course, there's our website address right there also, which has our Facebook page, Instagram, and our email address, which are all good ways to contact us. So that's one new way that we're trying to drive people to the website is this QR code.
Great, thanks, Jessi. And Dan?
Yes. We have a website, depotmarket.net, and it's got our email, got everything. We don't have a QR sign. That's a great idea for your sign. We should do that.
Yeah, I guess it's a percentage of the population that are definitely using QR codes. I was not one of them, but I might switch.
There's one difference for us is we live in the third world of Kansas. And so I'm not sure how many of our customers will, but we have interstate traffic. So that might be of value to them. I don't know. But we're always glad to help other growers, of whom much is given, much is expected. So we've helped a lot of people out, and we've obtained a lot of help from other growers over the years.
All right, well, I don't see any other questions from the folks participating in the webinar. I guess I might just give the floor to all of you for any finishing thoughts or anything that you think that maybe didn't get covered that you just want to make sure that folks on the call know about.
Well, I want to say that I appreciate Kansas Rural Center for hosting this tonight and for inviting me and our farm to be part of it. It's one of the other things that we have seen in our area is that with social media and Facebook especially, having a presence on there and people getting involved, shopping local Kansas farms is a huge drawing right now. And so we're also partnering with other farms in our county, encouraging people to get out and go on a tour and see farms, see how your food is grown, and get to know your local farmer, just take a drive. And so I encourage everyone out there to do that, and definitely welcome them to our farm. So that's a really great thing.
Thanks, Susan. Anything else, Dan or Jessi?
I don't have anything.
I got one thing. This has been fun and informative for me. Something I'm really disappointed about is when we did that little video, I was rattling off all the crops that we grow, and I threw in dental floss in there, and nobody said anything about it. What's up with that? Were you guys not paying attention?
I did, but I did.
At KRC, we did notice it, and on our staff call yesterday, we said, "Oh my gosh!" Or I said, "Are there going to be questions? Because we need to ask." So yeah, let's hear about the dental floss.
There's nothing about that. It's a joke.
Okay. Well, I thought, well, maybe it's the corn stalks or something. So, okay.
Okay.
Well, that was excellent. That was good.
I thought it was maybe spaghetti squash or something.
This got a running joke in our neighborhood. And several years ago, I have a friend who lives over at Scandia who's a seed dealer. And I put an ad in the paper saying that this friend of mine at North Central Kansas Seed and Feed is your local distributor for dental floss seed, which created a lot of controversy.
Well, it definitely caught our attention. We were curious. I'm glad you brought that up again. Okay. Well, I don't see any other questions from folks. Again, I really want to thank you, Susan, Dan, Jessi, and Londa, for joining the call tonight and taking the time to share with folks what you're kind of in real life experiencing, and how folks can maybe learn from that. So thank you for that. I'll be following up. Everybody will get a follow-up email from KRC with some of the resources that we talked about this evening, and some other information and things that pertain to this webinar. So thank you, everybody. Have a really great evening. Oh, we got one question that slipped in here really quick. How long does it take for birdseed to sprout birds? That's from Don Teskey. Thanks, Don.
That's a good question to keep in your back pocket in case you need that sometime.
That's a good extension question.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Alrighty. Well, thanks again so much, everybody, and have a really great evening. And check out Kansas Rural Center's webpage for the webinars next week. All right. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.